I have two microphones here, one labeled mic A and one mic B. One is $100 microphone, at least that's what I bought it for, the Razer Siren V2X, and the other is the Corsair HS80. I bought this for $130, got the receipt back there, and I actually have seen it for $150 at its MSRP, but I got it for $130. Now, headsets have notoriously terrible audio quality, and of the 20 plus headsets that I've reviewed so far, all of the mics are trash. So lock in your guesses of which one is which. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is mic A is the Corsair HS80 and mic B is the Razer Siren V2X. If you couldn't tell, then you might be really interested in this headset for its microphone audio quality. But we've got to start with the basics first, connectivity and controls. So this device was made to work for the PC, Mac, PS4, and PS5. And it doesn't get crippled on console like the Corsair Void, but this is definitely still a PC oriented headset. Now I used this on PS4 and it retained its core functionality like the mic flip to mute and the controls that are on it, but it didn't get access to the software. Of course, the software only gonna work on PC. I guess Mac too. I don't have the Mac to really test it out, but it's on PC. And this thing is definitely not going to work on Xbox because it has to be plugged in USB either through the dongle or through the wire. And I'll talk about that in a second. So there is a wired and a wireless version of this device. I got the wireless version. Personally, I think it's better to get it because at least at the time of me getting it, it was only $30 more. And you can use this wired also if you want. So it's like, hey, why not? To use it wirelessly, it comes with a USB dongle. And that's how I'm using it right now. It's all lit up with the RGB because it's connected to the software. And I'll talk about the software a little bit. I used both the dongle and the wired functionality on the PS4 and PC. To use it wired, you'll have to use this included USB cable. One's type C that goes in the headset, and then the other is USB type A. I think it might be, I don't know if it's 2.0 or 3.0, honestly. But apparently you can get high fidelity audio through this. If you're using it wired, the headphone audio quality didn't really warrant that in my opinion, but I'll talk about that also. Now, you don't lose any functionality whether you want to use it with the dongle or wired when you're going on PC. You can still use Dolby Atmos, all of the iCue software. It's just that you're not going to be able to update the firmware unless you go actually wired into this device and right into your computer. And this USB type C charging port is on the bottom, and that's going to be also for connecting to your computer. Now, there are pretty minimal controls on this. We have a volume wheel, and this is going to be for your system volume if you're on like PC, but if you're on PS4, then it will actually just change the volume of the headset itself. Now, clicking in the volume wheel, it should allow you to change the different EQ presets that are available in the iCue software. But man, as soon as you install Dolby Atmos, that software like hijacks this device and it really rips some of the functionality out of the iCue software. And this is one of the things that you just can't control anymore. I think the software implementation of this device is extremely bad, so I'm very excited to talk about that after the other sections. Anyway, there's a power button, which is pretty obvious what it does. Hold it to turn it off or on. And then there's this LED indicator, which will just be how much battery. So if it's green, then there's a lot of battery. And it can also be orange or red. But the issue is they never actually tell you the actual percentage of the battery, even in the software. You just kind of guess. Now the microphone is flipped to mute, which is really cool. And then you have this LED here. You can actually turn the LED off if you want to. And then going up will mute it and it'll turn red. Now it's time for the headphone audio quality. And I was really excited as soon as I got these. I listened to some music, compared it to a bunch of other headsets like I normally did. A day or two before I got this headset, the new Warzone map came out. So I got to try it on that. Really awesome. Unfortunately, I just don't think the sound is that good. I use this both wired and wireless, and just playing games and listening to music, I didn't hear a difference. So where I like to start is with the EQ curve. I feel like this is relatively balanced, I think, compared to a lot of gaming headsets where they have the treble boosted quite a bit, sometimes the upper mids so that they can make footsteps stand out, and then like the 2 to 5 kilohertz range, that's what they really like, and then the bass will be very weak. That's a pretty common EQ curve. I'm not really a fan of it at all. The HS80 sounds a lot more like the Void, where things are a lot more neutral overall. The sub bass is kind of empty. The bass is decent, but the sub bass is kind of empty. Not a lot of strength down there. The highs don't get really harsh. I do like that. So the EQ curve is pretty non-offensive. I think it works out pretty well for FPS games. I played Resident Evil with this and I actually thought it was really awesome and everything was nice and scary as it should be, but none of the loud noises like hurt my ears because of the frequencies. I think the strength of the bass of the Cloud 2 and Cloud Core, it's actually better than this device when EQ'd properly, but I like the signature out the box. It just doesn't really have that power down there, even when you EQ. Now for detail and clarity, I think this is where this headset kind of falls apart. I think the drivers just aren't that great. I actually switched between this device and the HyperX Cloud Core, and when there are a lot of sounds going on, cluster strikes, precision airstrikes, and a lot of footsteps, just a lot of different things going on in Warzone at the same time, it becomes really hard to try to pick each individual sound out and like track that, because if someone's chasing you and you're running all around but there's also a cluster strike, you don't want that to muddy everything up so that you can't hear the person behind you anymore. You can still to an extent in the Cloud Core and the Cloud 2, but you really get that separation in the Odyssey Penrose. I think when it comes to FPS games, the Odyssey Penrose is just ridiculously good, but it's also ridiculously expensive, so I'm not going to talk about that one too much. But yeah, I did get a little bit lost in the HS80 when I was just trying to navigate by sound with a lot of stuff going on, but it wasn't too bad. This is a little bit better than the Corsair Void, but worse than the Cloud Core, which is basically the Cloud 2. You can really tell the lack of the detail when you're listening to music. I've been listening to a lot of new stuff lately, and some of the music I really discovered on the Odyssey Penrose. So when I listen to this, it's like, whoa, what happened to all the different sounds? And even when switching to like the HyperX devices, it's like there's stuff that's just like kind of mixing together. I think the treble is really unclear. It's not harsh, which is good, but there's also not enough detail there. Vocals don't stand out from the mix as much as they do in some other devices that I have, and really thumping, booming bass in certain songs, you're just not going to feel it like that in the HS80. So it's passable for FPS games, but I wouldn't really use it for music. Where I really think that this thing shined is something that I hate to admit, and it's something that pretty much goes against most of the things that I talk about in my headset reviews, and it's Dolby Atmos. Now, I've talked so much trash about surround sound for literally over a year, and I have many more negative things to say about it, including Dolby Atmos. Competitive FPS games, not the way to go. It's gonna add filters and layers onto your sound that is not in the original mix. But for immersion, man, this was definitely the coolest implementation of surround sound that I've used. I'd say maybe the SteelSeries Arctis 5, where it had whatever that surround sound was one of the coolest that I'd used before. This feels like using the Razer Blackshark V2 with the THX spatial audio, except it's not quite as in your face and over the top. So one of the things about the Blackshark, which I talked about in that review, is when you're running by like rushing water or something, it sounds like the water is like right next to you and it's like all around you and just like whoosh, instead of, you know, it just kind of being there like subtle and mixing in with all the other sounds. It's like really standing out. I think the frequencies that they picked to pull out in the HS80 are similar to the Blackshark, where when you're standing like in a ship, I was like in a ship in this area, and there was like wind, and when you're just normally playing the game, the wind's like, you know, it's there. But when you have the Dolby Atmos on, it's like whoosh, like the surround sound virtualizer. It's really cool, and I actually liked it a lot, and it added a lot of immersiveness. Actually, I'll play a couple of clips and see, can you even hear the difference? So yeah, maybe you can't, but it's a very subtle difference that when you're really playing in game, you just hear those ambient noises a little bit more. I think they picked up whatever kind of frequencies that wind is, water rushing, things like that, what those frequencies are usually tapped to in games, and make the EQ curve really push that a lot more. And I had a ton of fun playing Resident Evil 7 with this. Did it help me figure out where enemies were? Well, I'm not really, actually, no, not at all, but it was really cool to have. If surround sound actually did what they marketed it to do and actually did give you superior positioning to stereo, like you could actually tell like with like some sort of extra metadata where the enemies were, that would be cool, but that's not not what it does. It's just a really cool, fun filter that they throw on top of it. You could probably replicate something like it in Audacity, honestly. But yeah, unfortunately, as fun as this device is to play games, if you're into something competitive or if you want to listen to music, I think the Cloud Core, which I've seen for like $35, $40 sometimes, I think just has better drivers than this. Bass, highs, mids. I think you do need to EQ that so that it's not super harsh and tinny, but when you EQ the Cloud Core, it just kind of smokes this thing, honestly, which is really unfortunate. This is slightly better than the Void. This is better than the Black Shark V2, but not by a ton. The Black Shark V2's bass is kind of muddy. It's not super strong, but it is kind of muddy. And just for a visual reference, this is the Black Shark V2X, and this is the HyperX Cloud Core. And this is the Corsair Void, and the HS80 is definitely better than this. Now, I just got done spending about 5 hours testing the high fidelity performance of the Corsair HS80, and I did a lot of research in addition to testing, and it led me down this really long rabbit hole. And I found out that high fidelity, high resolution, all that stuff is really an advanced marketing gimmick. Honestly, the main draw to it is that you have like higher resolution, but it means that you can get a frequency response range of 40 kilohertz, up to at least 40 kilohertz, but that's 20 kilohertz higher than the range of human hearing. And then you're supposed to be able to play back 96 kilohertz as a sample rate, which you can already do that using 3.5 millimeter cables. I really want to unpack this marketing gimmick because there's a ton of them in the headset space. But basically, if you think that 96 kilohertz or the 40 kilohertz range for the frequency response is going to actually help and make your sound better, definitely not. I feel like I wasted like 5 to 6 hours of my life testing that, but I'm glad that I did because now I have better context for the future. So yeah, if you're looking for really good headphone audio quality, I'd really just pass on this device. Honestly, I feel like the Astro A40, besides the fact that this thing isn't wireless, pretty much just beats the Corsair HS80. Way stronger bass, way clearer bass, more separation in the mids, more detail in the highs, but also not as harsh. This is really just a better device, the Astro A40. But there is one thing that the Astro A40 cannot touch it on, and same goes for the clouds. Same goes for the Razer Black Shark V2 and V2X, and that is the microphone audio quality. This mic absolutely dunks 360 windmills on all of the other headsets that I have. $300 headsets, the Astro A50 and the Odyssey Penrose, $250, $30, it doesn't matter any of the range, this just destroys all of them. And if you don't believe me, here are some samples. Now this is the Odyssey Penrose, $300 headset, that's what I paid for it, and the mic is super disappointing. Now I gotta say that if you did figure out a way to use this wired, the mic itself is not really that bad. The compression is pretty terrible though. The reason that I say if you can figure out how is because it doesn't actually come with a splitter in the box. So if you have a desktop PC, you can't really just plug it in and use it. You need to get a splitter from somewhere else. And this is a microphone test with another headset that I paid $300 for, the Astro A50. Super muffled in my experience, in my opinion. What do you think about the sound of this device compared to the Corsair HS80 and the Odyssey Penrose? One of the other things I like about it is the placement of this device. It doesn't need a pop shield on it because it's just angled at a way where you're not going to plosive it. But this microphone is not perfect, and I do have some criticisms for it. So if you were listening on a phone or a monitor, you might not be able to hear all the things that I'm listening to, but using headphones, you can really hear the shortcomings. So the EQ curve is the best part of this device. It really follows a very natural curve, just like the Siren V2X. It's not quite as warm as that, but it's relatively natural. It sounds more like a lot of the other condenser microphones like the HyperX Quadcast, things like that. But the volume is super low out the box. Now, I didn't actually boost the volume in post, but I did use the iCue software to put that 10 decibel boost so that you can hear it. Now, when you do that, you also hear that static feedback, and that is incredibly loud. It's crackly, and it really like bleeds into all the frequencies, so it makes it just like not really that clear. So if you're going to be using this on console or on Zoom calls or anything that's not like recording a video where you can edit it out or like use OBS as a filter or Audacity as a filter, you're going to have that really loud feedback. and it really messes up an otherwise great mic. Now, the good news is if you are using Audacity or if you're using like OBS like I'm using right now, you can throw on, boom, a noise reduction filter, and it will really cut down how much you hear of that static almost to none. And the microphone actually sounds pretty decent. You can use this for a lot of different types of content. I don't know exactly how this works with other software though. Like if you wanted to do it like for like Zoom or something like that, I guess you could use Voicemeeter and maybe some sort of plugin or something. I'm not sure exactly because I record myself in OBS, I stream in OBS, and I use Audacity. So I'm really familiar with that. But for chatting with somebody on Discord or something like that, you'd have to throw on some other filter, some other way. Not exactly sure how you do that. Another problem with this mic is it's omnidirectional. It picks up sounds from all sides, and there's no noise reduction filter, nothing that you can like alter yourself. And I mean like background noise rejection, not just like the static feedback. So I'll be typing right now on the keyboard and see how much of that you can hear. But also my window is open. I have my computer fan. These are things that I can't really control too much, especially my computer fan, and you can hear all of it. And I didn't notice this as much the first couple of days that I was using this, but the sibilants, the S sound, C sound, stuff like that, they're really sharp, and over a long period of time you really start to notice it. If you're only using this for a few quick clips, you might not be able to tell, but over like a long video you're gonna be like, your ears are fatigued and you're trying to figure out why. That's what it is. It's that sibilance. Also, I've had several occasions where the mic just straight up stopped working. It wouldn't be detected. I couldn't record in OBS or Audacity. If that does happen to you, then I would try to repair the device in the iCue software. That software is really whack. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but that did help me. And I will go as far as to say, maybe a little bit of a spoiler for the rest of the video, that this is really the only reason that I would get this device is for the microphone. And now for the comfort and build quality of this device. It's all plastic. It's a little bit heavier than some of the other devices. I guess I could list the specs for you so that you can see, but it's a little bit heavier than like the Blackshark V2X. The headband is all plastic, but I do like the flex on it. It's got swivel for those that are into that, but unfortunately the biggest weakness of this device is this headband. So while it's technically possible to put this around your neck, it's gonna be like most of the devices where it just kind of chokes you here because you can't extend it because there's no adjustment brackets, nothing on here at all. You can do this swivel, but no adjustment brackets. You have to use this, and this thing, you can't really adjust it that well. It's like you can kind of make it looser a little, but not really. It's really just made to like stretch to the fit of your head. Now, in my case, this really did end up being a pressure point on the top of my head, and I could feel it. I was like, what's going on? Is that band? It's just like it's kind of like a rubber band where just there's more and more tension on it, and the longer it's there, you just feel it more and more. It's very slowly. At first, it's quite comfortable, but then over time, you're like, what is that? And it's like, oh, it's this. So overall, I found it pretty uncomfortable after about an hour and 30 minutes. It's very weird because this is one of the most comfortable headsets to put on your head initially, because this cloth, I love this cloth, how soft it is. I love how it like just holds its shape just a little bit, but it's just like the Astro A40 and A50, but I think the padding is actually, well, it feels really good at first. I don't want to say it's better because once you do get this thing on and you have it on for a couple hours, you do get a little bit of pressure, at least me, near the bottom, just kind of the way that they're on. I think it's because of the headband, how it's pulling in and down. I think that's what's causing some of the tension. So overall, yeah, the build quality is decent and it's pretty comfortable for the first hour or two, but after that, nah. Now the software is another thing that makes it really hard for me to recommend this device. This software does some things nice, but I'm gonna have to show you like some B-roll footage that I took of this, because as you see this like error message right here, I have not been able to get the presets back in this software since I installed that super annoying Dolby Atmos. But what you should be able to do is some pretty cool lighting effects. I'll go ahead and show some of those. And then you can change the device's settings. It'll show you the battery. And as you see, it says medium here, but it's green. So it's like whatever. You change the brightness of the LED lights, mic boost, a lot of different things here. I really like that you can turn the voice prompts off because those are super annoying when you have the volume up loud. She's just screaming in your ear and it's like, come on. But yeah, what I really want the software for is to be able to control this basic stuff. Turn the side tone on and off, change the mic volume, and then like I need EQ. Where's all the EQ presets? oh, you gotta, it says you're being controlled by Windows Spatial Sound, but honestly, that's not really what's controlling it. What's controlling it is this. This is Dolby Access. And every time you restart your computer or whatever, you have to like go to your products and then set this thing up every single time. And it's just like, it's incredibly annoying. And here's your presets. But as you can see, it's on right now. And if I click between them with this button, it actually doesn't cycle between these because I think it only does that in the iCue software. And there's some pretty interesting, cool ideas that they have here. And the EQ actually works. I was using it to boost some of the sub bass down here and, just clean up footsteps here. Not really clean them up, but just make them a little bit louder, just to test all these different things. One thing to note is that the sound virtualizer, the virtual surround sound, it's on by default. So I turn it off normally, but you can, for fun, you can throw it on, just add a couple of filters there and just have fun with it. What I just don't like though is that you need to open this program in order to do this and set this thing up every single time you restart your computer. You got to get this from like the Windows store, and it just like, it only works with the HS80. In order to utilize it, actually, let me see if I can demonstrate this. If you change your sound source to something like, this is just my monitor, then all of a sudden, boom, now you no longer have access to Dolby Atmos. And it's like, are you serious? You can't even, and now you got to set this whole thing up again. So maybe you're thinking, okay, so now you control it in the iCue software. Nope, you still can't. It's like, dude, what, like how? It's really annoying how they did this. It's Dolby just kind of like, I guess they're really stiff arming Corsair to be like, yeah, only your headset and your products, this specific thing can be used with this, and anytime anything else is detected, boom, get rid of it. So yeah, I find this whole software incredibly annoying. I don't like it at all. I think it's really intrusive. Anytime you need to download extra third-party software, like I don't like that in general, having to download software. But like Astro, for example, the Astro 850, it just has the surround sound. It's just there. It's a button that's there. You just click the button right here. You want Dolby Atmos? You got Dolby Atmos. HyperX has that virtual surround sound button. Razer's kind of iffy how they do theirs. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. The Astro 840, that Dolby just comes right with the mix amp. You just press the button, it's on. So yeah, as much of a hater as I am on virtual surround sound in general, I think if you buy a headset with it, you shouldn't have to take any extra steps to do it. It shouldn't hijack your other programs. You should just get it and it should just work. After several days of trial and error, I finally figured out how to take control away from Dolby Atmos and Windows Spatial Sound and give it back to this iCue software. So this is Dolby Atmos. It's open right now. It says it's ready for use. What you need to do, right click this speaker, sound settings, then click your headset and output, HS80. And Dolby Atmos, when you install it, it automatically goes all the way down and puts this spatial sound on. So off. And then now on the headset itself, you will finally be able to click the button for the volume wheel and switch between the different presets, and you can make your own. And now it's back to normal. Now, for some reason, you can't change side tone. I guess side tone's just not a thing with this device, but you can change the mic volume as long as the mic is active. Once you mute the mic, well, then it'll go down there. So overall, the iCue software by itself is pretty decent, but when combined with this Dolby Atmos crap, also this headset's really reliant on the software to be used on PC, I guess Mac too, but to be used on PC because the EQ presets, they don't save to the device itself. Some others it does, like if you save the Arctis 5 or even like this, the Astro 850, this will actually save to that base station itself. The mix amp will do that. Some of the other headsets, they'll just, or even the Logitech G Pro X, save to the dongle or save to the base station, whatever it is. This doesn't save to it, just like the Corsair Void. So if you're not using this device on PC, you lose all that EQ functionality. And now for my verdict, I only recommend the Corsair HS80 if you specifically need a headset mic and you want the best gaming headset mic that is out there around this price range. But really quickly, some of the headsets that I would recommend over this would be, if you have the money, the Odyssey Penrose. Then some other devices I like better is the Dropos Epos PC38X, Astro A40, those two aren't wireless, HyperX Cloud 2 or Cloud Core, again that's wired as well. I think all those devices I like more in comfort and headphone audio quality. They lose in the mic quality though. And that's it. Links to all the devices that I talked about are going to be in the description.